dinosaur and I'm in ancient Rome, but I don't even know if I'm supposed to be here. Yeah.
Julius Zebra by Gary Northfield, published 2015. This book takes place in Rome.
Ancient Rome.
It takes place in 14 BC, 30 years after Julius Caesar dies. Ancient Rome is one of my favorite places. Ancient Rome is where it mainly took place. The main characters are Julius, a zebra, and Cornelius, or a warthog. Julius is kind, caring, funny, and a believer. Julius is kind because he's always helping people out whenever they need it. Julius is also funny because when the first time somebody said gladiator, he thought it meant glad he ate her. Cornelius is scared, nice, and believing, just like Julius. Why? Cornelius, he's always scared because he's scared of big things. Cornelius is also believing because at the end, he makes a big mistake, but he tried his best. So at least he did that. There are some other characters, but they're not main. Lucia, a crocodile that's a vegetarian. Rufus, a giraffe. Felix, an antelope. Miles, a lion. And Pliny, a mouse. In the beginning, Julius is with his stinky brother and mom. Well, they always like going to lakes and he has to go with them. And the lake is super stinky, so he hates it there. But his brother gets pretty strong from the lake and his mom demands him to go to the lake. So when he goes to the lake, there's a lot of other animals, but then a lion comes and they all have to run away. So then Julius meets Cornelius, a warthog, and they go back to see if the lion's still there. Miles is the lion, and he's fierce, and so he comes after them, extremely mad, trying to eat them, but they get caught in a dark hole, and the Romans take them for custody so they can take them to a pit. So when they're getting there, Julius complains. They're like, yay, we're at this big town, and Julius is like, yes, we're here, it finally took 5 hours. But then Miles has to tell him that they're only halfway there. So then when they get there, they get thrown into a pit with all the other animals that I told you about. They are forced to fight against gladiators, and Julius has to go against one of the most fierce gladiators, and then most of the other ones run away, so Julius just has to defeat one. Miles defeats one too because he's a really good fighter, but Julius defeats one too, and he saved their butts because it was the best one out of all of them. So the king of Rome invites him to his birthday party, and so he has to fight to the death. So after they get invited to his party, they have to fight for 10 days. So they have to get trained by this guy named Septimus. He's a really good trainer, but they won't listen. So he gets kicked out, but they still think he's there. He just leaves. So Miles has to get them. Miles has to teach them, and he takes it very seriously, and they get very well trained. But right before they're about to fight, they get armor on, but they mess around with the armor. So when they're going against the gladiators, they absolutely get demolished. Okay, so after that, they had to get sent back to their cell, and the next day they were supposed to be murdered. But Pliny picked the lock with his tiny little hands, and so they got out. So the next day, all of them were looking for them, but they decided to put on mustaches to try to look like people, and one of the gladiators figured out they were in the stands, so they literally had to fight to the death. So first up was Cornelius against Destroyus. He absolutely got destroyed. Destroyus, yeah. This guy just whacks him in the butt and he goes flying. Next up was Miles. He went at this big brute guy. He bit his head, And so because of that, it really hurt his teeth. Next up was Miles. He went up around his neck, started swinging around his neck and stabbed him in the back. But the problem was right before he was about to get him, he tripped on a rock. He got knocked out. So then there was Felix. Felix didn't want to fight, so he whacked himself in the head with his sword, and he knocked himself out. But then there was Rufus, the giraffe. He kicks the guy in the stomach, so he wins. And then he gets destroyed because two gladiators team up on him. Then it's only up to Julius. The two guys, the first guy he tickles him to death. The second guy he whacks, and then the third guy was the most powerful guy. So the third guy, Julius hit the guy in the head, and then the guy came back at him and hit him in the head. So he lost his sword. So Miles, out of the stands, had to give him a sword, and right as the opponent was about to strike, like this, Julius got his sword back and striked him in the stomach. So then, because the animals won, they got set free and got to go back home. Problem and resolution. So the problem is that they got captured and needed to go home. So they had to fight the gladiators for that. Once they beat the gladiators, they got to go home. So my favorite part of the story is when Cornelius gets whacked up into the sky, because that would never happen in real life. I recommend this book to people who love fiction. I personally love fiction, and if you like comedy. I rate this book a 10 out of 10. That's my end. Yeet!
My gosh, it's lit! Yay!